Nati, maybe you can tell us a bit about the plan for today.
So we got, if you look at the agenda, we also set a mobile application on OpenStackIsrael.org. So there's anyone who wants to see that, there's also a leaflet that you can look at. Basically, you'll see that the day itself is split into keynotes, and then there is 2 technical tracks. At the keynotes, we try to split between those who are leading the OpenStack implementations and case studies, users who are actually using that. We have good flavors of users in Israel and also from abroad, some interesting case studies. And obviously, we'll open with the OpenStack Foundation by Jonathan Bryce, which will come to talk in a second. During the second part of the day, we'll split into 2 technical tracks. We'll talk about the deep dive of OpenStack, basically 2 layers of OpenStack, the actual foundations and implementations and frameworks on top of it. So you'll hear about Sander, you'll hear about Innova, you'll hear about Quantum and some other, if you like, new frameworks that are built within the OpenStack Foundation, but you'll also hear about how you move application into OpenStack and the orchestration around that. We'll gather again after those technical tracks, and we'll hear both from HP on the how do you build OpenStack implementation and from Innovance. And we'll end up with best practices in that area. So that's kind of, I would say, the structure. We'll also have an interesting raffle at the end of the day, right? So those who will be staying till the end will be able to win some nice Amazon prize, so you can pick up some.
I think we have 2 $100 pricing for people that will remain until the end of the event.
So anyone who didn't register or didn't put his business card or anything like that, there's a raffle there. Just put your business card or name, and we'll obviously pick that up towards the end. There's also an after party, not the after party that some of you may know, just a small after party at the beach, and hopefully we'll have a very nice, enjoyable event.
Yeah, if somebody interested in the after party, you can look at the meetup site and see the details how to get there. And you know, OpenStack brings many advantages to the industry. One of them, it reduces the cost of implementing clouds, both in the private clouds for companies that have data centers, because we don't need to pay per resource, per CPU, etc. It's an open source model, so it reduces the cost of implementing cloud infrastructure as a service. And second, it finally brings a standard de facto to the industry that enables us to implement freedom of choice between different cloud providers based on cost performance using the OpenStack APIs. So this is one of the greatest things about OpenStack. Nati, why OpenStack is important to Israel?
I think that if we look at OpenStack in itself, and I think that's a very good segue to Jonathan talk just right after. OpenStack is an ecosystem play. I think the Israeli community have been kind of staying behind the open source activities in general. And if you look at Linux, if you look at a lot of the open source activity, it's definitely the right place to be in. And since Israel is based, the Israeli high-tech industry is really based on innovation, I think that OpenStack is a good framework, a good ecosystem to plug yourself in. And my expectation from this event, and the goal for this event, is that many people that are sitting here right now will submit a talk about their case study using OpenStack next year. So by any means, the event is for you. Take a look at whatever is happening in OpenStack, and I'm sure we'll find a way to plug in.
By the way, how many people here are developing something for OpenStack or integrating with OpenStack? Oh, many people. So, as you see, Israel, as known as a startup nation, also has an impact on OpenStack by contributing. I know, for example, from big companies like IBM, Research in Haifa contributing, and other companies that you will see here in the agenda are contributing to the OpenStack. And we know companies in Israel, one of them will present a case study like LivePerson using OpenStack within the data centers. So we really see adoption of OpenStack both in the R&D community of Israel, integrating, contributing to the open source, and also implementing it to implement infrastructure as a service, cloud platform within data centers in Israel and abroad. because some SaaS companies in Israel have data centers outside of Israel, but they're using OpenStack as well.
Thank you. So I'd like to welcome Jonathan Bryce from the OpenStack Foundation.
Thank you also to Nadia and Amr for organizing this and for doing this several times. It's something that we've been able to participate in remotely, and we're all really excited to be here in person today. And it's been a great visit so far. We've really enjoyed our time here. And now let's talk some OpenStack. So he asked how many people were building applications with OpenStack. How many of you are relatively familiar with what OpenStack is and the different components and all of that? Okay, so about half, maybe a little more. I'll run through some of the basic information quickly. What I want to talk about today is a little bit of what Nadia was saying, and that's really more around the ecosystem and what OpenStack is enabling, not just as software, but as a community of developers and users and companies and everyone who's building with OpenStack and working around it. So, great, thanks. So, what is it? I think, it really is more than any of those things on its own. We know it's open source software. We know there's a massive global community around it. There are a lot of technology vendors, large and small, who are involved in it, but I think it really is a lot more than all of that together. And what it comes down to is this concept of an ecosystem and a platform that we can all build on top of. So, how do they work? Just a few examples here. How many people here have a smartphone? Probably everyone, right? And how many of you have a smartphone that is either iOS or Android? Again, pretty much everyone. Those are platforms, those are ecosystems that are massive. And in every platform ecosystem, there are three major parts that it's made of. You've got the technology, the underlying platform that people build on top of. You have all of these applications on your mobile phone. You have millions of users that are making use of that technology and all those applications, and it creates this environment, this cycle where there's a whole lot of benefit for everyone who's involved in it. And just some stats, if we're looking at some of these, like iOS, for instance, you're talking about hundreds of millions of devices out there. It's a huge, huge market, and part of what has driven that is because it's not just a phone. It's not a single-purpose technology. It's a platform that people have extended and turned it into all sorts of other useful things, mapping, calendaring, applications for events, all of these kinds of things. Same thing with Android. They both have hundreds of thousands of, I think they both have about 800,000 applications now that you can get on their platforms. And OpenStack has all of those pieces as well. We don't have 800,000 applications built on top of OpenStack yet, but maybe we'll get there one day and you can help us with that. But we have the OpenStack software. We have an ecosystem of developers, of organizations who are all building on top of that software, making it more valuable, and making it useful in new ways. And that's drawing in users who also provide feedback that makes the software better, that attract more investment from more organizations, and it's just a great cycle. And as they were saying, it's actually a really good time right now with OpenStack to get involved if you haven't yet. So if we dive down into this a little bit, on the software technology side, this is a basic overview of the main components of OpenStack. OpenStack is really about managing compute, storage, and networking in a data center, and taking all of those different pieces of infrastructure and technology that are running somewhere in a data center, automating them, and putting an API on it. And so now you can programmatically talk to all of that infrastructure in your data center. And that really changes the way that users and businesses can interact with all of their IT investments. This is something that has been going on in the public cloud, and we have public cloud providers, and We're going to hear from some of them today who are taking OpenStack to create public clouds, but it's also happening now in enterprises who are wanting to get more value out of their infrastructure, who are wanting to make their development processes and their businesses more agile, more flexible, and more efficient. If you dive in a little bit deeper, OpenStack has these main capabilities here. I won't read everything on this slide. I'll let you guys do that. But it's again, it's about taking the infrastructure in the data center, software that manages that, and puts an API on it. And you'll notice that when you look at something like the block storage system, for instance, there's a basic overall architecture for how OpenStack components are built, where we have that API on the top, like we saw on the graphic just a minute ago, and then there's a bunch of software in the middle that takes calls from the API, processes them, decides what to do, and then hands it off to drivers at a level down that go out and actually configure a block storage device, configure a network in something that we have a networking plugin for. And it's a very flexible architecture, and this is part of why so many people are involved in OpenStack right now, is because it allows you to go in and get more value, often out of technology that you're already running. One of our bigger users is a company called Mercado Libre, and they're the 8th largest e-commerce site in the world. They use OpenStack in production, and they also use NetApp. And about a year and a half ago, when they were first using OpenStack, our storage system didn't support NetApp. They worked with NetApp and other developers, and got support for NetApp in there. And that's extremely valuable when, as a user, you can go in and impact directly the course of the software that you're relying on, and make it fit what you want it to do, make it work with the technology that you already know how to run, have an investment in, have the tooling, the monitoring, everything in place. Now they're able to use that rather than having to go and replace it with something else. And you can see it also supports Ceph, it supports Gluster, it supports EMC, IBM, HP, a lot of different storage systems. And that really is part of what makes OpenStack so valuable, is that kind of plug-in driver architecture. The other thing that's really cool about our software is the way that it's developed. We have an open development process that right now is based around 6-month release cycles. And every 6 months we do a release, and then after the release, a large portion of the community gets together at what we call design summits, and we work on planning the next release. We just had our last summit a little over a month ago now in Portland, Oregon. We had a lot of people there, and a lot of work got done for planning our next release that's coming out. But it's something where, if you were interested in getting involved in OpenStack, the community is very open. It's pretty easy to join, to start contributing. It's a very, I would say, welcoming community. I've been involved in a number of open source projects, and sometimes it's a little bit scary to enter some of these communities. I think OpenStack is actually a pretty nice community overall, and we've gotten very big, but I think it's still an approachable sort of development community to come join in and be a part of. So that's kind of the software and the technology piece of the platform. If you look at the ecosystem, as I mentioned, we have a very large and innovative ecosystem, and it includes hundreds of developers. It includes open source projects, and it also includes a lot of the companies that you're going to hear from today who are sponsoring this event and who are working with OpenStack, and they all provide a ton of value. Over 200 companies who are involved in OpenStack now, and it translates into a lot of work that comes out from those companies and into the software, and so that's making the software better. And you'll also find that many of these companies have services and other products that they build on top of OpenStack. So again, we were talking about NetApp. NetApp is involved now, and they have made contributions to get their storage systems working with OpenStack. There are companies all over the world, and companies like Gigaspaces here in Israel, who are taking OpenStack as a base platform and building new tools on top of it, and running platform services, running other things on top of OpenStack, and ultimately that provides a lot of value for users, because they're able to get the tools they need to run their business, and they're able to get it the way that they want it. So it's actually a really great benefit to have people out there taking this software and making it more accessible. This isn't just a total do-it-yourself open source project. If you want to do it yourself, you absolutely can. But if you want to have a company that can help back you up and provide additional services and support with OpenStack, that's an option and that's available. These are some of the companies that are the biggest supporters of the OpenStack Foundation. And so you can see that these are a lot of very well-known global IT companies. These companies are behind OpenStack, and for many users, that's a great thing to have a sense of comfort that if you are if you're a SUSE user, you can continue to work with SUSE. If you're a Red Hat customer, you can continue to work with Red Hat or IBM or any number of these companies. And again, I think that is something that provides ultimately a lot of value for users. So, who is a potential user of OpenStack? I think that as OpenStack continues to mature and continues to get built out, what we're really looking at is anyone who has any of this is a potential user of OpenStack. Everyone who has a data center or uses infrastructure in a data center, every server, every storage device, every networking device. Ultimately, these things all are going to be controlled by software. They're going to be available over APIs, and OpenStack is an open source platform that's enabling that. Now, right now, can we run every server, every network device, every storage device? No, but I think that's the goal, and that's where it's heading. And there's also a lot of silly cat photos out there on the internet. Those have to live somewhere too. This is actually Lauren's cat. This is really, I think, going to change the way that we use IT and that we access all of that infrastructure that's running out there. It's going to make it much more efficient. And even though OpenStack is relatively young in terms of the data center and server market, we have a lot of users and a lot of different places who are doing a variety of things with it. We have big companies, we have startups, we have e-commerce companies, we have academic research institutions, we have just basically any kind of use case, any kind of company you can think of is doing something with OpenStack now. And that's extremely valuable, and especially if you look at the most recent release, you can see a lot of feedback from these users coming into the development process and kind of influencing the direction of the software and the things that are getting worked on. And I want to dive into just a couple of different use cases real quick. So PayPal, has everyone heard of PayPal? They're a very large e-commerce company, and PayPal is a really great example of a company who is changing the way that they run their IT in order to get more value out of the business. They have obviously a lot of infrastructure, and they have this core payment engine that they have built a lot of different services around. They are continuing to release new services on top of that core payment engine. But the way that they were managing their infrastructure before, every time that they started to work on a new development process and a new feature around that core payment engine, it would take months and months to get the infrastructure deployed, to start running that service, testing it, seeing how it was going to work, what they needed to iterate on. They wanted to go to something that was much more agile and something that let their development teams be free to go out and build new services rapidly, turn them around quickly, and get them out the door as quickly as possible so that they can test things and see what do our users want, what do they find valuable, how do we tweak it. And so they went from provisioning this infrastructure over months down to days, and it has really changed the way that they get these new services out the door. And PayPal is running some of their production infrastructure on OpenStack, so they're a great user. And a lot of these users have spoken at our summits as well. So if you go to openstack.org, you can look around and find a lot of content from different users here. The NSA, this is actually one of the I think best keynotes at our last summit, is using OpenStack for big data purposes. You can go search for NSA on OpenStack.org and you'll be added to a watch list, but you'll also get to see this great video. IDS Datafort. This is a Russian cloud services company that's building public and private clouds, and they are they're again using OpenStack as this platform that as Avner was mentioning earlier, you get this crossover benefit of having OpenStack in public clouds and private clouds, and that's what they're doing for their customers. And Intel, I won't talk a lot about Intel because I know they're here today, but they are using it as a foundational piece of their global IT infrastructure too. More users. We actually have a video, but I think we're running low on time, so I will just continue to say, go to the website, look for the Summit videos, and you can see all of these users talking about how they're using OpenStack, and in some cases, see demos of what they are running on top of OpenStack. And the other thing that I think is great about our user community is our users really are part of the development process and part of the community in a way that is often not possible when you are working with just off-the-shelf software. Earlier this year, we had 5 authors who came from around the world. They came to Texas, and they wrote a book in 5 days. It's the OpenStack Operations Guide, and this is we have a few copies of this that I think we're going to include in the raffle at the end of the day. It's a collection of the hard-earned information that these operators have learned in their real-life experience. And they've put it together in a book, and it's available for free as a PDF on docs.openstack.org. You can find it from there, or you can win a copy today or buy a paper copy. But that's something that is really, I think, extremely valuable again about our community. Is users get involved in different ways. Some of them contribute code, some of them write books, some of them provide feedback and help direct the software and kind of shape which way it goes. So just a few minutes left here, and I want to talk a little bit about who's behind OpenStack and how it's structured. OpenStack started as a collaboration between Rackspace and NASA in July of 2010, and since that time it has grown to be very large. Last year, Rackspace created a nonprofit foundation, along with most of those gold and platinum members that you saw earlier, to be the long-term home for OpenStack. So OpenStack is a community, and it's software, and it's all these other things. And there's the OpenStack Foundation, which is really we're the sort of the cat herders that try to coordinate things and help the community continue to be able to collaborate and move forward and work on developing this great software. We have a small team of full-time employees. The foundation is now fully independent and works to represent all of these interests: the developers, the users, the companies who are involved in OpenStack. And we do that through a variety of activities like these events, the summits that we put on, and other things that we do to help. So if you want to find out more about the foundation or get involved, you can go to openstack.org/join, and you can become an individual member of the foundation for free. You can start contributing for free, and a lot of ways to help get involved. And really, like I said, the foundation is primarily focused on coordinating all of the resources of the community in order to get the most impact out of everybody who's working on this in a distributed way from around the world. So just to kind of close here, OpenStack has been exploding in size. It's been having an amazing amount of growth, and it's been great to see that. As I was mentioning these summits, we started out with about 75 people almost 3 years ago. The last one had 2,600. The next summit is in Hong Kong in November, first week of November. And if you really want to dive in and get involved in OpenStack, that's a great place to come. Be able to get your feet wet and find out exactly how it all works. But it's not just about people coming to conferences. We have a lot of active contributors. We doubled the number of contributors in the last year to the software. And so these people are getting involved and contributing in a real way. And do we have any OpenStack contributors here? I know some of you. thank you guys. That's a huge part of what makes OpenStack tick is these contributors who go and work on the software and make it better. And this is a graph of the code base from when we started. Very simple, small project. Now we really are moving towards that goal of automating everything in the data center. So a lot of progress has been made. There's still a lot to do, but it's really I think a great time to get involved and to take advantage of the opportunity that exists to be part of this movement and to really change the way that we run IT. So just in summary, again, I think OpenStack, it's more than software, it's more than a great development community, it's more than a bunch of companies, it's all of those things, and we're doing it in an open way, and ultimately that provides a great opportunity and a lot of value for everyone who's involved in it, whether you're a developer, whether you're a user, where you want to go out and create a valuable business. And so hopefully this is a good day for those of you who are looking for an introduction, and if you are already involved, it's a good day to make some connections and figure out how to do even more with OpenStack. So I think that's my time, and thank you guys. Do we have time for questions, or are we moving along?